What's going on, everybody, and welcome back into the Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football channel. It is Wednesday, September 27th, and we're talking more trades, as we'll do between now and really mid-November, late November, when a lot of people's league trade deadlines come to pass. That's going to be a primary focus on the channel because I believe that through trades and the practice of buying low and selling high, you can ultimately build super teams in fantasy football. It's not always going to be easy, but I find that every year, if I'm diligent and I look through all my leagues and all of the teams in my leagues for their needs, how I could potentially help fill those needs, there's always going to be a partner in a 12-team, 14-team league that you match with. And then you make a trade, and that can set you up to match with somebody else to continue improving your team. It does take being lucky on injuries, but it is very possible to do if you have that stroke of good fortune. So I want to talk today a little bit about the trades that I've been making. We're going to look on Yahoo transaction trends at some of the players that are being traded most right now in fantasy football and talk about whether we would buy high on some of those guys, buy low on some of those guys, sell high, sell low, what we're looking to do with some of the most traded players right now in fantasy football. And I'll also tell you on today's video how much I spent for Devon Achane in one of my leagues as our waivers ran last night, and I pulled off a little fab trade to basically guarantee that I could get him. So that's all coming up on the show today. Appreciate you guys for joining me. Click that subscribe button. That's the main thing. It is a race for me to get to 1,000 subscribers so that it becomes worthwhile for me to do these videos. I enjoy doing them, but would love to be able to build this channel as I've done from scratch over the past couple of months. So appreciate you guys who do decide to hit that subscribe button. On the last video I did talking about running back trade targets, guys that I would potentially look to buy low. We talked a lot about Derrick Henry in that video. I got like 60, 70, 80 comments of people just asking about different trades. That's exactly what I want you to do, and I'm going to reply to all of them. Let me know your trade questions. Let me know what is going on in your league that I can potentially help you with. I think when it comes to like fantasy analysts and, whether they call themselves experts, a lot of times you get to places like Twitter, and it can just become sort of a cesspool of people trying to just look smart. And I like to do these videos and tell you that I don't know any more than you do necessarily. We're all watching the same NFL game, but I think about it in a way that can maybe help you with trades, can possibly help you with certain transactions that you could look to make. You're not always going to get every decision correct, but I think if you have a process of thinking through it, it can help you in the long run. And so that's what I'm trying to do with these videos, and hope you guys appreciate and enjoy that. Okay, we're jumping right in. Too much of a preamble. I'll work on it. I'm getting better as we go. Here's some of the most traded players, or the most transactioned players, I should say. A lot of these are ads and drops, as you're seeing here on the screen. Josh Palmer, Devon Achane, Tank Dell, three of the most added players. How about Adam Thielen as well, having a couple of good weeks in a row? I want to sort it, though, by trades and see who's being most traded right now in Yahoo leagues. Raheem Mostert, all right? That's people selling Raheem Mostert off of his huge game against the Broncos, and some people willing to buy. For me, Raheem Mostert might be a sell off of that game if you're getting a true RB1, like a top 8 running back, because I think Raheem Mostert, for as long as he's healthy, is going to continue to be a huge factor when it comes to that running game in Miami. But the health thing for me is always going to be a question mark when it comes to Raheem Mostert, because he just seems to be so often injured. So here's a cool thing that you can do on Yahoo. If you're like, what's happening with some of the trades involving Raheem Mostert? I think you're usually able to look at these actual deals that he was involved in and decide kind of how you think about what the market is doing with a certain player. This is a really cool feature. I hope they never put it behind a paywall, because I know that Yahoo's got like a paid service. This still is on the free stuff, according to what I'm seeing, because I don't pay for the Yahoo paid service. So, like, here's some examples. Raheem Mostert and Amari Cooper for Travis Kelce. I would say that's a great example of selling high on Raheem Mostert to pick up the tight end one in fantasy football. We see somebody else here packaging Mostert with another guy that I think is a sell-high candidate, Alexander Mattison. Not too high on his talent level, but he had a good game in terms of fantasy production this week. I think 17 PPR points. So you can package those guys together. Don't love trading CeeDee Lamb. I think this was kind of the wrong week to be trading Lamb. I would be trying to acquire Lamb off of his, kind of slow game against the Cardinals that the Dallas Cowboys had. However, look at what they did here. They got Travis Kelce and they got Chris Olave. I would say Olave and Lamb absolutely are in the same tier. So if I could trade Mostert and Madison for Kelce, assuming that I'm okay at running back, because I just traded 2 running backs, didn't get one in return, but I am elite. I am as good as it gets now in terms of the tight end position. So these are the kinds of things that I really like to look at. Here's another move that I think was really smart by the person with the package, getting the star in Stephon Diggs. They traded Raheem Mostert, and they pick up Mike Evans. They traded Mostert with Evans. You can see here highlighted, and they pick up Stephon Diggs. These are some really nice trades. Somebody decides to get out of the Kyle Pitts game, trading Mostert with Kyle Pitts for Mark Andrews. I'm a little bit worried about what Andrews has done productively so far this season, but that's a good example of taking two and getting better at one position as a result. I think that was a reasonable move that somebody could make. Looks like some of the most traded players, we were going to get back to that screen here. Raheem Mostert. Garrett Wilson, another very interesting trade candidate, because what do people think about the talent of Garrett Wilson? Well, they love it. They know that he is a very good football player, but what do people think about the situation for Garrett Wilson right now? Yeah, that's a little bit more concerning because Zach Wilson's just not cutting it as the quarterback there in New York. And so how long are we going to have to wait to see the true Garrett Wilson emerge when it comes to his talent level and skill set? Take a look at some of the recent Garrett Wilson trades. For me, Garrett Wilson is tentatively a buy if you can find the manager that has completely given up on the Jets. But a lot of people are going to be a little more reasonable than that. We do see fantasy managers, though, being pretty reactionary, right? We always can succumb to recency bias. So let's look at some of these Garrett Wilson trades and see what we think. Garrett Wilson and Jalen Warren for Javonte Williams and Dameon Pierce. And obviously, we don't know the people's league situations here. This is why I ask you guys in the comments to let me know. Like, tell me your whole league. Tell me your whole roster, what you're working with, because I do think your roster is relevant to some of the trades that you might look to make, because it's all about upgrading your lineup, right? I would rather have a lean bench. My bench exists for two purposes, especially before bye weeks. It exists to try and have players on the bench that I think are tradable, that I can do a 2-for-1 and upgrade somewhere by using a guy from my lineup and a guy from my bench to improve that lineup spot. Or it exists to have younger players that I believe can turn into tradable assets for bona fide fantasy superstars. Yeah, eventually you're going to have to think about it a little bit differently when we get into bye weeks, and you might have to have some depth on that roster. And if you've dealt with injuries, this isn't always going to apply because it's more difficult to do what we're talking about, always trading 2-for-1, always trading 3-for-2. It's not as easy to do when you have lost Nick Chubb, you have lost J.K. Dobbins. It can be done. I've got a league where I lost Nick Chubb. I've got a league where I lost J.K. Dobbins. I'm finding ways to build up my depth around that and try and get back into churning out these 2-for-1 trades. But I want to get into these Garrett Wilson trades here and see what I think of some of these. Garrett Wilson and Jalen Warren, I think I prefer the Garrett Wilson side on this one. Dameon Pierce is not really a buy for me necessarily right now. He's just kind of sitting in that flex range at the running back position. And when you're running back 25 or so, that's not that good in terms of weekly fantasy production. I think wide receiver 25 in PPR scoring is often going to outscore RB 25 in PPR scoring. And in a lot of leagues I'm in, you can start an extra wide receiver, so it makes it even more important to prioritize that position. I'll talk about the trades I've done today that have allowed me to do that in one of my big leagues. Javonte Williams, I think, is a nice buy low candidate, but Jalen Warren is honestly kind of in that same boat. A shared backfield in Denver. I think Javonte is going to be the head of that beast. Shared backfield in Pittsburgh. Jalen Warren probably could eventually be the head of that beast. It's going to be like a 60-40 split no matter how you slice it. But I don't necessarily mind swapping those two running backs and then getting Garrett Wilson for Dameon Pierce. I think that's a nice buy low as long as the person giving up two RBs has enough depth to be able to withstand that. We know that they can plug Jalen Warren into their flex or even their RB2 if you get desperate. Because the way I like to play, I am not going to freak out if I'm starting Jalen Warren at RB2. Because my wide receivers are going to be better than anybody in the league. If I'm in PPR, that is the way you can take advantage of your scoring settings, in my opinion. Garrett Wilson for Tyler Lockett. Very simple 1-for-1. Those are the kinds of trades that happen when somebody has talent, but they don't have opportunity due to a downgrade a quarterback or something like that. People panic. Tyler Lockett, I love Tyler Lockett. He's my favorite player in the NFL. I talk about this all the time. I think Garrett Wilson, if these two guys are on your bench, I would rather have Garrett Wilson because I think there's a chance that he can. Maybe Trevor Siemian comes in. They picked him up for the practice squad. The Jets did. If you're in Superflex, I would stash away Trevor Siemian. There are ways that you can get Garrett Wilson back on track. And if that happens, his ceiling is higher than Lockett, who has to share with Metcalf, who has to share with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who has to share with the Seahawks running game because that's the way they like to approach football under Pete Carroll. So it depends on the situation. If I need somebody in my flex, I'd rather have Tyler Lockett because I think week to week, he's going to be a better safe floor producer who also does have some ceiling because he just is a bona fide baller. Here's an interesting one where we have Garrett Wilson and Jalen Hurts, the QB1. You could argue Mahomes would be QB1, but high-end QB. And on the other side, we've got Justin Fields, who people are panicking on, and almost rightfully so, and Bijan Robinson. See, These are the kinds of trades that I like to see where people are getting a Bijan Robinson, where people are making these moves for elite bona fide studs and trying to, and again, they had to package their Jalen Hurts with the Garrett Wilson because of that. If Garrett Wilson was with Aaron Rodgers, this trade doesn't happen because this person is happy to have Wilson and is certainly happy to have Jalen Hurts. We're seeing them buy Bijan Robinson at cost because he's been great and is going to continue to be great. They buy Justin Fields low, basically making a gamble on Fields. If Fields can end up leveling out and getting the running game back the way he had toward the end of the 2022 season, he will come close to Jalen Hurts. But I'm afraid to bet on that. But if I'm getting Bijan Robinson and Garrett Wilson is the cost, I think that is one that makes sense. So this is the toughest one. What do you guys think of the comments about this Wilson and Hurts for Fields and Robinson? Because to me, that one is really, really fascinating. Garrett Wilson for Christian Kirk. Again, Garrett Wilson for Christian Watson. Like, if I'm the Watson owner, I made out like a bandit because I don't know when Christian Watson's coming back. I've already traded my Watson shares where I've had them because I've just been so frustrated by the hamstring. But you can find a player that you can fit into your lineup at least with Garrett Wilson, and there still is upside there. It's just not the level of upside that it once was. Kind of looking here. Here's another name, Breece Hall. I'm very curious to see who Breece Hall is being traded for. And I also want to kind of pull up Zach Moss, Devon Achane, because I think those are guys that are being moved rapidly. Breece Hall for Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, it's bleak out there. I did this in a league. I traded Zach Charbonnet and Jameis Winston for Breece Hall yesterday. Now, the context here is that it's a super flex league, and the guy that I gave Jameis Winston to does not have a second quarterback. He was also very fed up because he had a lot of Breece Hall shares across his league. I was able to say, I'm buying him at his floor. I like Zach Charbonnet. I think Zach Charbonnet is a buy right now too. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to take a shot on Breece Hall here by basically giving up guys that I picked up off waivers, essentially. Drafted Zach Charbonnet for a couple dollars in our league's auction. So Breece Hall for Pacheco, who just scored touchdown, like, that is a reasonable trade that I think gets made in fantasy today. I don't honestly know which side I prefer. I think Pacheco is not ever going to be the only running back in KC, but you have a Patrick Mahomes offense versus a Zach Wilson offense. We actually get to see that matchup this Sunday. They're playing each other, Jets and Chiefs. Breece Hall and Calvin Ridley for Kenneth Walker. I like that. As long as the guy that gets Kenneth Walker and gives up Calvin Ridley knows that he's set at wide receiver, I think Kenneth Walker is a big time. He's what we would call a buy high right now. I think Kenneth Walker is having a great start to the season, but I think you might be able to have somebody who drafted him in round 5 and still kind of goes, oh, he's been great, but do I need to sell now because he's performing like a round 2 player or a round 1 player? I would just keep Kenneth Walker. So if you can get him for a running back that you're afraid to use, and Breece Hall, and a wide receiver in Ridley, who you're definitely selling low on Ridley right now, but not if you get Kenneth Walker. Buying high versus selling low, like all these things, it depends on what you get. If you get Kenneth Walker, he's, for me, top 5 rest of season. So I actually like that trade quite a bit. I want to see a couple more. If you have names, by the way, I can do another video on Thursday. This is always some really good stuff. If you have names to say, hey, I want to see who's being traded for, George Pickens. Can we talk about George Pickens? Absolutely. Put it in the comments below. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, and we can do these videos multiple weekdays to kind of get an idea for what trades are being made and what trades need to be made. Jerome Ford for Roschon Johnson. I'll take the Jerome Ford side. I love Roschon Johnson's upside, but Jerome Ford's already the guy in Cleveland after the Chubb injury. Roschon Johnson's still got to work for it, and it's kind of a lesser volume offense. Jerome Ford for Calvin Ridley. You're seeing a sell high of Jerome Ford and a buy low of Calvin Ridley. It depends on what your team needs, but I could see that. I could see that for the team that's getting Calvin Ridley going, maybe I'm set at running back. I lucked into Devon Achane, or I lucked into some of these other guys by scooping them off waivers, and I want to get better at wide receiver. I think that could be a move that would make sense. It could also make sense for this guy if he's got Calvin Ridley, but that's his flex, and he goes, I can plug in, I don't know, I could plug in Adam Thielen to my flex for a couple of weeks till I figure it out because he's been great anyway. I want to be starting him. Then I'm going to pick up Jerome Ford because my RB2 right now is, not performing. That is the type of stuff that I think makes a lot of sense to see. Let's get into Derrick Henry because I want to talk about a couple of things before we wrap up this video, because Derrick Henry is a guy that I traded for yesterday and traded away today. This is the way these things went down. I traded Derrick Henry, or I should say I traded Zach Moss and Devon Achane for Derrick Henry and Marquise Hollywood Brown. On the surface with those names, you would say, oh my gosh, the Henry side by a mile. Why do you play with idiots? Okay, go to my Twitter, at bschaefer12, and scroll to my poll. I did a poll question on this, and it's basically 52-48%. It is a split among people who are not in this league. I think people like to complain, and so they say, oh, Derrick Henry, of course, you heisted, you fleeced the other guy. Okay, what do you think about Devon Achane right now? Oh, yeah, you're high on him because he's a really exciting young player. Do we know what the season's going to bring for him? No. He's still maybe the RB2 behind Mostert. But what if Mostert gets hurt? It's happened before. Happens a lot to Raheem Mostert. Okay, Zach Moss. Okay, well, he's been fantastic, but when Jonathan Taylor comes back, yeah, that's a risk. That's why I traded Zach Moss away. But from the other perspective, do I know Jonathan Taylor? Do I know his agent? No. Can I project that maybe he sucks it up and wants to make it happen? He's making money on IR, so right now he doesn't have to worry about, it's not a holdout. He's on IR. He's technically injured. So does Jonathan Taylor want to come back? Does he need to come back? Does he demand a trade? What happens there? We don't really know. I tend to believe that he'll come back, but I'm like 55-45 on that. I don't know better than anybody. Fantasy is all about projecting things. So do I feel like I made a good deal in trading two guys that were basically waiver caliber at the beginning of the year for Derrick Henry and Hollywood Brown, who's produced? Yeah, I think it's a good move because I am capable and I know how to find the needs of other teams and say, I bet I can sell Derrick Henry for something I actually want. It's not that I don't like Derrick Henry, but there's risk associated. It's a hot potato. If I'm going to buy him, I almost would say if I can sell him for Derrick Henry price, I'm doing that even off of the 2-point game that he just had. If I have to wait to sell Derrick Henry, and you can look on screen right here as I'm talking at some of the trades that have been made for Derrick Henry in Yahoo leagues. If I have to wait because nobody wants to buy him off of a 2-point game, but then I wait for that 20-carry, 110-yard game where he scores a touchdown, and everybody goes, oh, crap, Derrick Henry's back. I got to go get him. Okay, we're back in business. I was able to get a very fair return, I think, for Derrick Henry one day later. It happened today. I traded Henry. I traded Hollywood Brown, so two guys that I got in that deal. I also traded Zay Flowers, a guy who, very exciting rookie right now for the Baltimore Ravens, but I traded 3 for 2. I got James Cook and I got Devontae Smith. James Cook and Devontae Smith I received for Henry, Hollywood Brown, and Zay Flowers. On the surface, I don't know if I won this trade in a vacuum. I think I did pretty well because James Cook, to me, has got a safer floor right now than Henry because he's in a better offense. Is the ceiling lower? Maybe. But I don't even know if that's true at this point. So I really appreciated getting James Cook in that RB swap. And at wide receiver, I get Smith for Flowers and Hollywood. This is just a decision that I'm making that I think Smith will be better than Flowers rest of season. Or do I think Smith right now has higher trade value than Flowers? I think he does, which is why I was willing to add Hollywood to get that deal done. Hollywood was on my bench. He was only ever somebody I brought in because I thought I could trade him. So I've turned essentially Achane, Moss, and Flowers into, at this point, Cook and Devontae Smith. I also had Jalen Waddle on my team. I know that the guy who I want to get Stephon Diggs from has Tua. Okay, now I also know he likes James Cook. So I traded James Cook, Jalen Waddle, and I believe I threw in a third piece, Tyjae Spears, the backup to Derrick Henry. Those 3 players I traded for Diggs, Kyron Williams, and Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks was more of a throw-in. But I'm now going to start Kyron Williams. But what have I done here? I've traded basically late-round picks, and I have Stephon Diggs on my team. Can't take him away now that I've got him. This is kind of the thought process when you are making these types of trades. Let's look at Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Rachaad White. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Jacobs and Henry are kind of in a similar tier. I don't like Rachaad White, but I think value is maybe on the Jacobs side there. Here's what I really like. Derrick Henry, Tutu Atwell for Bijan Robinson. Bang, you nailed it. Because you basically traded Derrick Henry like he's still Derrick Henry. This person that's acquiring him is surely not panicking on him. But do I prefer Bijan to Henry? Absolutely. And you gave up Tutu Atwell, who could decide, to just keep doing his Tutu thing all year long, or he could ultimately decline a little bit when Cooper Kupp comes back. Excellent trade by the person who got Bijan Robinson. You're always looking to 2 for 1 your way into something better and more stable. I even think Henry and Myers for Eckler is a great trade. Eckler has been out a couple of weeks with an injury. When he comes back, week 1 he had 26 fantasy points in PPR. If you trade Henry and Myers for Eckler, you are doing this properly. Henry and Miles Sanders for Taylor is riskier. If we knew Taylor was back and playing week 5, I would say great trade. But we don't know that for sure. But what do you think of that one, guys? Henry and Miles Sanders for Taylor. Here's a great one. Derrick Henry for Breece Hall. Oh, boy. You have two bad offenses, two really talented players. One's young and ascending. One's 29 years old and maybe on the decline. But at the same time, man, I don't know what. I think I prefer Derrick Henry pretty cleanly in this deal because as bad as the Titans offense are, the Jets are even worse. And I think Henry is, I mean, he's had 2 good weeks and just one bad one. We just happen to be coming off with a bad one. Derrick Henry for Devon Achane. Dealer's choice, my friends. Here's a great trade. Derrick Henry and Tank Dell for Jamar Chase. That's how you do it, folks. Tank Dell, love the kid. Love the kid. But there are a handful of players in fantasy football that are, I call them like infinity stones. I like to get infinity stones at wide receiver. And what that means is once I got them, I lock them into the gauntlet and they don't move. They're not tradable for me. Stephon Diggs is an infinity stone. That's why I got him today. Jamar Chase is an infinity stone. I don't think right now Derrick Henry is on that level because of the questions about the Tennessee offense. So let me know what you guys think of all these deals. I'm going to wrap this video. I know there are other players I wanted to get to. Let me know in the comments who else you would like to see me talk about as it pertains to these deals and who's being traded for what. Devon Achane is going to be the last name I talk about today on this particular video because I picked him up in one of my low-stakes league for $101 fab dollars. Let me give you the quick rundown on this happened, and then we'll wrap up by checking out some of these Achane trades. If you can see on the screen already, you can probably look at some of these moves that have been made with Devon Achane. Let me kind of mid-video make that a little bigger so you guys can see. This is bad editing on the fly, but I want you guys to be able to see what you're looking at. Let me know if you like this better, too. It probably makes more sense to have it just be bigger on the screen so you guys can see it. That's something I can learn as we do these videos. We're just learning. Subscribe to the channel. Be along for the ride. Here's what I did with Devon Achane in a low-stakes league. It starts back in week 1. It actually starts back in the draft when I draft Justin Fields, and I am sad about that because he's bad. So there's another guy in my league who drafted Josh Allen, and remember Josh Allen week 1 had 4 turnovers against the Jets, and he was sad about that. But he also had Anthony Richardson, the rookie for the Colts, on his bench, and he was like, this dude's great. I want to start Richardson. I'm trading Josh Allen. I said, okay. Well, I am fed up with Fields, so I'll come get your Josh Allen for you. What do you want? I end up getting Josh Allen for Christian Watson. Watson I was very high on coming into the year, but I just couldn't deal with the hamstring. I knew it was going to linger. It has, so I feel totally good about that. So now I've got 2 quarterbacks, though, in a 1-quarterback lead. Nobody's showing interest in Justin Fields except one guy, and he's trying to buy low. 2 weeks in a row, he's trying to buy low on Fields. I'm like, I'm not going to sell him for nothing. Then this Achane thing happens, and lo and behold, there's one league that I'm in that Achane is still on waivers as of last night. It's this league. So I'm like, all right, hey, man, you want Fields? I'll give him to you. I'm going to need some fab. First, I asked for Zach Moss and $8 because I had $93, and I knew that could get me to 101, and I would blow the load on Devon Achane because nobody else would have over 100, right? This was my thought process. And the guy's like, I'm not trading Zach Moss. I'm a Colts fan. I'm like, okay. I don't even care anymore about haggling with you. Give me a number on Justin Fields. Like, what's the dollar amount? He's like, oh, I don't know. I really don't care that much. Like $10. I was like, okay, that's stupid, and I'm getting had a little bit, but I'm going to get Devon Achane. I'm going to go to bed, and I don't even have to think about it because I'm a bid $101. So I get $10 in A.J. Dillon for Fields, who I didn't want to use. I have Josh Allen. And then I bid 101 on Achane. So if you're asking what's the most somebody bid yesterday on waivers on Devon Achane, it might have been me. I bid 101% of my starting fab budget. I have $2 left for the season because I had that extra $2. I needed 8. I think I had 93 coming into it, and I needed 101, and I got 101. Now I have 2. But that's my story. What do you think about Devon Achane? Like, what are we doing here with this kid right now? Because he's an absolute firecracker, but do you want to sell high on him, or do you want to just say, nope, he's going to keep being awesome, so I'm going to keep him? Here are some of the deals that have been made on Yahoo to wrap this video up for Devon Achane. For Jerome Ford, very similar situations. I don't know which side I prefer. I think Ford is more locked into an RB1 role, but Achane's probably more talented, and he's in a better offense. So what do you guys think about that one? Achane for Harris, knocked it out of the park. I would love it if I had Najee Harris and was able to get Devon Achane. Absolutely. I'm stuttering because I'm so impressed that somebody was able to do that. Devon Achane for Montgomery. I prefer Achane, I think. Achane for Goff. Maybe that's a super flex league. Not 100% sure what that is. Achane for Henry, we've seen. Achane for Gibbs. I mean, look, two explosive rookies that aren't in the RB1 role for their team. Like Gibbs, I hope the Lions start using him like he was picked 12th overall. But so far, we haven't really seen that enough. Achane for Andrews. I mean, this kid has one big week, and you could have him for free a week ago. You really could. So I hope you are in on the Achane party early. If you'd like to see me do a video about who could be the next Achane, that could be really interesting. For those who made it to the end of this video, the first name that I'm going to do when I talk about that is Zach Charbonnet. Go get him now. It might already be too late because he went up in snap share. But I'm telling you, Zach Charbonnet. And I'm going to try to avoid this, be the guy, because the fantasy analysts on Twitter that annoy the crap out of me, they go, I'm telling you, go get this guy, sell your mortgage, sell your kids. And it's like, okay, we got to recognize as fantasy football players that we don't know everything. I don't know that Zach Charbonnet is going to be great. I think based on the opportunity I'm projecting, I think he's worth buying now at the price you'd have to pay. Let's real quick look at Charbonnet. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is the kind of stuff I live for, man. It is so fun to kind of look at these trade markets. Only 9 trades of Charbonnet. That tells me it's still possible to do. But let's see what people are paying to get him. Man, kind of robust. Here you go. Charbonnet for Freiermuth. You do that. Charbonnet side. Charbonnet for Pitts. As long as you have somebody else at tight end, you probably do that. I don't think that's even crazy at this point. Puka and Charbonnet for Calvin Ridley. I take the Puka Charbonnet side, honestly. Because Puka could be, 80% Calvin Ridley the rest of the year. Kelsey and Charbonnet for Pollard and Andrews. Goodness. We're dealing with some heavy hitters here, folks. Andrews and Pollard is a great side, but so is this other side. I think I prefer the Pollard side a little bit, but I also think Andrews can snap out of it and become good again if Lamar becomes good again. But this is kind of telling you that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we are too late on Zach Charbonnet. Because I don't know what the trades for Devon Achane looked like a week ago, but they didn't look like this. Charbonnet and Debo for Mixon and Marquise Brown. That's it. Yeah, give me the Charbonnet side. Give me the Charbonnet side on that. Let me know. I'm gonna try to come up with some other players that could be like, hey, you need to be buying these guys now if you want to try to get in on the lows. And again, the lows could just stay low forever, but they could also spike into a Devon Achane. And if I'm wrong, what did you pay for it? Not that much. That's why you want to try to get in early and call your shot on a guy. Achane I had stashed away. That's why I was able to turn him into Derrick Henry. Charbonnet, I got stashed away right now in that same league. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. Let me know in the comments, what trades are you trying to make? What trades do you want insight on? I'm going to try to be here to help y'all out. Am I always going to be right? No, but understand that I'm passionate and I love this kind of stuff, and I want to think through it with you. Sometimes it just helps to have somebody else that's not in the league, so they aren't going to try to swoop in and steal your trade, because we all have those buddies that we talk to about trades, but then we go, oh, shoot, I can't talk to him about this trade because he's in the league, and if I bring it up and ask him what his opinion is, he might try to take the guy from me. So I want to be that confidant for you guys, understanding that I'm not always going to nail it, but I'm going to try, and I think that we can think about fantasy together and be able to come up with some very good ideas to where at least you feel comfortable with the deal that you're making. Even if it doesn't end up panning out in the end, did it make sense at the time, and did you have a thought process that you felt like you were comfortable with? That's kind of what we're trying to do with this channel. So hit subscribe, hit like on this video. More importantly, drop your comments so we can get rolling on trades this week. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.